Suppose you work 20 hours per week for a job that pays $13.50 per hour. Your employer withholds 8% of your gross pay for federal income taxes, 7.65% for FICA taxes, and none for your state taxes because you work in Florida, and that has to have some benefits. So we want to find out what is your gross weekly pay, how much is withheld for income and FICA taxes, what is your weekly net pay, and what percentage of your pay is withheld for taxes overall. So we can start by finding out what your gross pay would be, where if you are making $13.50 per hour and working 20 hours, your total there per week would be $270. Pretty straightforward. So for taxes, the amount withheld by your employer, because often employers will withhold an amount of your money for taxes so you don't get yourself screwed over and owe $3,000 when you can barely cover your rent in April.
Marge, how many kids do we have? Oh, no time to count. I'll just estimate. 9.
Homer, you know we don't have...
Shut up. If I don't hear you, it's not illegal. Okay, I need some deductions. Oh, business gifts! Here you go. Keep using nuclear power.
Homer, I painted that for you.
Okay, Marge, if anyone asks, you require 24-hour nursing care. Lisa's a clergyman. Maggie has 7 people, and Bart was wounded in Vietnam.
Cool.
That will end up being 8%, 0.08 times 270. So they're going to withhold $21.60. Meanwhile, for FICA, that would be the 0.0765, again, times the 270 per week, which there would end up being about $20.66. So if you want to find your net pay, your net would just end up being your gross minus the amount for taxes, so minus 2160 minus 20.66, and just an aside here for those of you that have ever heard of the term Hollywood accounting, this is the sort of thing that you need to hear that in the context of. This is the sort of thing that's worth being aware of. It's why they always say to get your money in terms of the gross rather than the net, because the net is always smaller, and Hollywood accountants are really good at making the net seem a lot smaller than it really is. In this case, your net pay, though, would still be pretty reasonable, about $227.74 per week. So I guess not that reasonable, but operating under the assumption that you're making the average for a college student of about $13.50 and that you're only working half-time, you're not forced to work full-time, that's actually about where you'd end up. So from here, if you want to get the percent withheld, well, what you're going to end up doing is essentially just finding the percent decrease, where because you are getting 2160 and 2066, that ends up being $42.66 difference divided by 270, or if you prefer, let's make that approximate because it's not exactly this value, 15.7% of your money would be withheld for taxes. Where for the record, if you didn't have any other adjustments or exemptions beyond the standard ones, and this was your entire income, your gross there would be $12,960, which would put you in the 10% bracket for taxable income, which is to say you'd be a little bit below that, but it'd have to come down to how some other things end up working out to see whether you'd end up paying a little bit more, or around tax time you'd be getting back a little bit more. That's how the return actually ends up working that you're filing. You're filing your record that gets checked against the IRS's record, and if they determine that you've been putting too much away, they give you back some. If they determine you haven't put enough in yet, then they send you a bill. Where you might be getting a bill this year because your job didn't seem to be putting quite enough in that direction throughout the year. Anyway, this is how these sort of things come together. This is what you will have to be thinking about sometime next spring. For now, though, let's start thinking about what Section 8.3 looks like.